The Revolutionary Guards just claimed responsibility for attacking 2 vessels from the United Arab Emirates, and that timing matters more than people realize. These weren't random freighters wandering into the wrong waters. They were traveling through the southern coast of the Strait of Hormuz, the passage that runs along Oman's territory, where Iran technically has no jurisdiction. But Iran decided months ago that every ship has to use the northern route, the one they control, and anyone who ignores that order gets hit. What makes this different is that the guards didn't just fire and stay quiet. They put out a statement taking credit, which is unusual when you consider how silent the other side of Iran's leadership has been. Because there are 2 camps inside Iran right now, and they've been fighting each other almost as much as they've been fighting the United States. On one side you have Ahmad Vahidi, head of the Revolutionary Guards and the supreme leader, pushing for more aggression. On the other side, there's Masoud Pezeshkian, the president, and Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, who've been trying to negotiate some kind of deal. And then there's Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the parliament speaker, stuck somewhere in the middle trying to mediate. A week ago, it looked like the accommodationists might actually get somewhere. There was a memorandum of understanding, another round of negotiations scheduled, and people were cautiously optimistic. Then the talks collapsed, and now we're back to strikes and threats and oil tankers getting attacked in international shipping lanes. What's strange is how quiet the accommodationist camp has become. Araghchi used to tweet constantly, in English, in Hebrew, in Persian, in Arabic, always making statements, always visible. Now? Nothing. Ghalibaf, who usually tries to bridge the gap between the 2 sides, has also gone silent. Meanwhile, the Revolutionary Guards are making noise, claiming attacks, beating the war drums. That imbalance tells you something about who's winning the internal argument right now, at least publicly. Trump's response was to announce that the United States is reimposing what he's calling a tax on ships passing through Hormuz. 20% on cargo that goes through the strait, collected by American forces. It's an interesting move, especially since the administration spent months criticizing Iran for trying to do the exact same thing. But the logic is clear. If Iran's going to block the southern passage and force everyone north, then the US is going to control access and make money off it. Whether that actually happens is another question, because most ships aren't going to risk getting fired at just to save on fees. They'll wait, and oil prices will climb, and that becomes a problem for Trump as we get closer to the midterms in November. Then there's the question of what happens inside Iran if this drags on. More sanctions, more strikes, more economic pressure. We've seen protests before when things got bad enough, both from the population and from parts of the leadership. If the accommodationists start pushing back harder, or if there's unrest in the streets, that changes the calculation. But right now they're working behind the scenes, if they're working at all, and the public face of Iran is all hardliners. And just when it seemed like the variables were already complicated enough, a new front opened up in the last 24 hours. The Houthis in Yemen, who've been quiet for a while, are back in the mix. Saudi Arabia launched a strike on an airport in Sana'a, the capital of Houthi-controlled territory, because an Iranian plane was trying to land there. The Saudis said they wouldn't allow it. The plane ended up diverting to a different port in Hudaydah, and the Houthis retaliated by firing at Saudi targets. That's significant because it pulls the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into play, the choke point at the southern end of the Red Sea, where 10 to 15% of global commerce passes through. We saw what happened during the Israel-Hamas war when the Houthis started disrupting shipping there. It was a massive stressor on the world economy, and now Iran has another lever they can pull if they want to escalate further. Trump reportedly spoke with Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, and gave him backing for military action against the Houthis. That's notable because up until yesterday, Iran had fired at Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, Jordan, but not Saudi Arabia. The Saudis and Iranians had been negotiating their own side deal, trying to avoid direct confrontation. Now the Saudis are forcing themselves back into the arena, sending a message that Iran shouldn't start resupplying the Houthis or reactivating that front. The Houthis have already fired ballistic missiles back at Saudi territory in response, but Iran itself hasn't retaliated against the Saudis yet. Whether that changes in the next few days will tell us a lot about where this is heading, because this isn't going to end with a full military defeat. The United States isn't sending ground forces to take over Iranian territory. The geography alone makes that nearly impossible. Iran has mountain ridges protecting the coast, and even if the US managed to breach them, maybe coming through Kuwait, it would be a nightmare. So unless there's an internal revolution or rebellion, this ends with some kind of diplomatic resolution. The question is, how much damage gets done before we get there, and who capitulates more, the US or Iran? Right now, the indicators to watch are oil prices, internal pressure inside Iran, and whether the Houthi situation spirals into something bigger. Trump said the straits are open and everyone should feel free to pass through, as long as they pay the new 20% tax. But ships won't go if they're getting shot at, so prices will keep rising. If that continues into the fall, it becomes a domestic political problem. If protests start up again in Iran, or if the accommodationist camp finds its voice, that shifts the internal balance. And if the Houthis start closing off Bab el-Mandeb, that adds another layer of economic pressure on everyone involved. Lucas Tomlinson reported that Trump told Hugh Hewitt this morning that Pickaxe Mountain is a possible target. That's a nuclear facility buried deep in the Natanz region, north of Isfahan, one of the sites the International Atomic Energy Agency hasn't had full access to over the years. Israel and the United States hit it before, back in June 2025, during what people started calling the 12-Day War, and then again between February and April in the current round of fighting. There are reports that Iran's been trying to rebuild it from underground, using their network of tunnels and hidden infrastructure. Trump calling it out by name is a signal. It's saying, we know what you're doing, we know you're rebuilding, and we're coming after it. But it's also leverage. He'd probably call the strike off if Iran came back to the table with a serious offer on Hormuz. There was also something about Iranian drones possibly being stored in Cuba. Bill Stewart with Reuters reported that Trump said the US is looking into it, and if they're there, quote, we'll take care of it. That felt more like an attempt to bring the threat closer to home, to justify resuming operations in Iran by tying it to something on America's doorstep. Cuba's been in the anti-US camp for decades, aligned with Venezuela, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. So it's not impossible that there's some connection. But the timing is convenient. Trump's been signaling that Cuba might be next, and this comes out the same day he announces the Memorandum of Understanding is over. It could be true, but it also serves a narrative purpose, making the Iran threat feel more immediate to a domestic audience that's been asking what this has to do with us. The thing is, this is moving too fast to predict weeks ahead. A week ago we were talking about negotiations and cautious optimism. Now we're talking about nuclear facilities and new fronts opening in Yemen. You can only look at the next few days, maybe the next few hours, and try to read the signals as they come. The Revolutionary Guards are loud. The accommodationists are silent. The Saudis are back in the fight. Oil prices are climbing. And Trump's talking about big fat shots through front doors. It's hard to say where this goes, but it's not hard to see the pressure building on all sides. The question is, who blinks first, or whether anyone blinks at all before something breaks that can't be put back together. And maybe that's the part worth thinking about. When both sides of this dug in and the middle ground keeps shrinking, what does it take to step back from the edge? Or do we just keep adding fronts and stressors until something gives, and then deal with whatever comes next?